difficulties on this end, but we seem to have resolved that. So with that, first of all, welcome and good afternoon, everybody, to Austin's January Roundtable, the first roundtable of the new year. I hope everybody is excited about this year. I know we certainly are here at the Department of Planning. We've got a lot of information to cover today, so without a lot of fanfare, and with your permission, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and share the quick agenda. I want to make sure we certainly give the opportunity to the aldermen to greet everyone before we get started. But we're going to be talking about a new grant program that I'm sure most of you on this call have been aware of since we opened it back in January 6th. I'm going to just detail the webinar that was presented at that time to make sure you guys are informed about this resource and be able to answer some of your questions. DCASE is also going to be providing us an update on their public art initiative and what that entails. Lydia Ross is on the call to kind of help assist with that. Gabriella is going to be on the call to walk us through an initiative called We Will Chicago that is literally going to look at a comprehensive plan that the city of Chicago is about to embark on. And then we're also going to get just a teaser, if you will, and a look in terms of the exciting things that we have planned this year for the Austin corridor. So first, I want to make sure Alderman Mitz, if you were able to join the call, if you can just start us out with the welcome, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Absolutely. Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year to each and every one.
Coming around, maybe
Thank
Peter
you all for attending the roundtable. I do think that someone needs to mute themselves as well. We really appreciate the work that's been done in the past, and we have a lot more work to do going forward for 2022. And I'm excited to be a part of this work. A lot is going to be happening, and we need to stay focused and make it happen. I think this year is our time, even though we're in a pandemic, but I know Austin and know how to get it done. We all work together in our communities to make it better. That's what we want to see, taking out the old and bringing in the new. And I am excited and welcome all of you. Participation is always very great because that helps to move things. If we just, they say closed mouth never get fed. So speak up, speak out, and let your voices be heard during these conversations because things will move with you or without you. So I welcome all of you here today, and thank you so much, Jim, your department, for the work that you're doing.
No, thank you, Alderman. We appreciate your support and your effort and this great work and this fun work that we are doing in the Austin community. So no, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And before we really get into the crux of this presentation today, as many of you are aware, there's a survey that has been released from List Chicago, and it is a survey to help us look back for a second in terms of how this platform has been playing a role in terms of us doing and completing some of this work. And we literally are looking at this survey as a way for us to reflect on the previous roundtable meetings that we've had. And so we really need your input in order to make sure that we are either on track or if we need to make any adjustments. So I've asked Caroline Rendon to start us off today, just to give you guys a reminder about the survey and how you guys can participate. Caroline, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. As Jim said, we've got this survey out. We only so far have about 6 responses from Austin. And so I would love to get some more. I know many of you have seen this and a few of you have filled it out. So I appreciate those of you who have, and please continue to put the word out there. I'll just add that this is only the first step. that we're taking and sort of reflecting on the roundtables and what's working and what's not working. So so the survey is just giving us some initial thoughts and ideas about what folks are thinking and doing. So your oh, thank you. There was the copy of the survey on the screen. I'm also going to put the links in the chat. So so please click on those, keep them up in your browser so that when the meeting is over, you're sort of reminded to complete that. I have it in both English and Spanish. So if there are folks who are more comfortable in Spanish, know that the same survey is available to them that way. It should be like less than 10 minutes, very quick survey, just about your experiences on the roundtable. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. And I'm just going to add for this group, 6 participants on this survey. I know we can do better than that. So please take the time. We don't mind you taking the time in terms of doing a survey while you're on the call. Even though we've got some good content here, you guys know that you can always take a deeper dive in any of this content at your leisure by simply reaching back out to us. So with that, we're going to go ahead and keep going. So next slide, Ernest. So as many of you know, we are embarked on what I think is an unprecedented initiative created by our Mayor Lori Lightfoot, that literally has signaled not just to this city, but I would argue to the country in terms of how you can be intentional about having equitable investment happen in a municipality. And so as a result, Invest South and West did just that. It aimed at communities on the south and west sides of Chicago. It aimed at 12 corridors across those 10 communities. And the goal was to make sure that we created sparks in terms of the work that was already being done in these communities, and that the city played a role in terms of signaling to the philanthropic community and to the private sector and into the community themselves that this is where the city was going to put its resources in order to help these communities enjoy being the 3rd largest market in this country. And I think we're on the right track to doing that. I also know, as you guys well do, that there's a lot of work still yet to be done, but we are started. And so as a result of that, 2022 is an opportunity for us to continue some of that work. And it's certainly going to take you guys' effort to help make that happen. And that survey that Caroline just released is going to help us better understand how we can play a role in terms of helping that to continue. Next slide. So we've got community agreements. Please mute yourself during the presentation so that the presenters can be heard. When you have a question, please feel free to state your name so we understand who's asking the questions. There is a Q&A function that Ernest is going to be looking at if you choose to use that function to get your questions out. We're also going to be recognizing raising of hands. All questions, as you know, are ideals are valid. So please respond with respect. This group has been incredibly good at that, and we certainly want to continue that effort. Ernest? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Chicago Recovery Plan Community Development Grant, which is a mouthful. We just call it the Chi Recovery Grant. Next slide. And today what we're going to do is I'm going to pretty much give you the same presentation on the webinar that we conducted back on January 6th. We had over 1,500 people registered for this webinar that we conducted back then. I think the last count was close to 800 folks was actually on the call at that time. And what we want to do is to make sure, and what we wanted to do then is to make sure people understood the process to connect to this resource, and then also provide some tips in terms of what that application and what would constitute a good application. And I'm also going to be taking questions at the end of this presentation. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, thank you, Ernest. So it's important to note that the resources that are coming down to cities across America, and particularly in Chicago, are unprecedented in terms of what they're aimed at. In Chicago's case, we're looking at over $1 billion worth of investment that is going to happen. And as you can see, these are the areas that are going to be the focus from the Chicago's lens in terms of equitable economic recovery and thriving and safe communities. We're going to be having our own portion of the grant, which is roughly going to be about $50 million plus in order to support the things that are coming out of planning. But it's also important to note that other departments are going to have resources and initiatives that they're going to be executing as well. Next slide. So as a result of planning is looking at 3 of these initiatives: community development, small business and workforce support, and community climate investments. Next slide. And the purpose is, again, no differently than what we have been trying to do with the other resources that the city had at its disposal. We're looking for catalytic local development. You know, the grants aim to do the same things that we have been doing since we've started the Invest South and West initiative, which is strengthen local corridors, enhance neighborhood vitality, and drive equitable economic recovery. Next slide. So what you guys have either concluded or will find out on this call is that this grant program mirrors our existing programs. And when I say that, many of you are familiar with our Small Business Improvement Fund. Many of you are familiar with our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. And we have literally taken those 2 platforms and those 2 programs and used that as building blocks for this particular grant. So when you see things like the grant can be used for expansion or renovations, for new locations and new constructions, most of you who are familiar with those grant programs know that is nothing different than what we've been doing with our other programs. The grant amounts do and have changed. So the applicants for this particular Shy Recovery Grant Program can apply up to $5 million. And that's something different. Even with our NOF large track, the dollars were usually about $1.5 million to $2 million. This is up to $5 million. So we think that's significant. It's also important to note, as you can see here, is that we do have 2 different tracks. So there is going to be a group, and the group that I am actually going to be participating in, we are going to be looking at those grants to come into the city under $250,000. But we also have a financial incentives division that are going to be looking at grants to come in above that. One of the things that also must be noted is that this grant is looking to cover up to 75% of eligible project costs. And again, that's significant. Even on the NOF large, small program, excuse me, you have a baseline that goes up to 50%. And we can even go beyond that, as you guys know, with our bonuses. This grant is limited to up to 75% of your total project costs. So I'll go into that a little bit more later. Next slide. So what is eligible and who's eligible? Well, first thing to note, and again, we're looking at similarities. So we're looking at commercial, we're looking at light manufacturing, and those 2 are significant. You know, the commercial component of this mirrors NOF and SPIF. The light manufacturing component of this grant mirrors the Small Business Improvement Fund, or SPIF. Here's what's different: the mixed use component of this particular program. So I have spoken to this group about another initiative that we launched last year called the TIF Purchase Rehab, and where I signaled that projects now that had that residential component on the top and that commercial component on the bottom was what we were using to activate that TIF Purchase Rehab grant. Well, this grant is mirroring that program. So now we've added a 3rd program that, again, existing programs that the city already was using, now we're just using this to put it into one single resource. Business owners and entrepreneurs, property owners and community developers are all eligible to participate, and applicants. And here's another thing that is something that I'm going to be echoing as we go through this presentation: applicants from all areas of Chicago. This grant is not limited now to a TIF district. It's not limited to the south and west sides of Chicago. This is a Chicago grant. I don't think there was ever a resource with this type of magnitude that was open to the entire city. This is doing just that. The eligible expenses include major, major exterior and interior renovations, build outs for incoming businesses, acquisition, site preparation, demolition. One of the things that we are very proud of that we have done with our SPIF and particularly with our NOF program is to add architectural and engineering fees as part of the grant program. Those expenses will be part of this program as well. Roofing, masonry, facade work, windows, mechanical systems, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. If you can turn the building upside down, whatever falls out is not eligible. Whatever sticks to that building is what we consider eligible for this particular program. Next slide. So I talked about that geography, and we just think that is incredibly significant. We are not going to be limited to specific locations or corridors. We are going to be paying attention to specific locations and corridors that we know have historically not seen this type of investment. So it's not like we're going to throw that particular metric out the window. This is something that we just want to make sure that we share with the entire city. Light manufacturing projects and mixed-use residential projects are eligible. I can't say that enough. That mixed-use building in which we could only usually target either the residential component or in other cases, we could target the commercial component and not the other. This program allows us to do both. And then we also can do vanilla box projects. With the NOF program, we literally wanted one applicant, we literally wanted applicants to signal who that tenant was going to be before making a determination to award the grant. In this case, we're looking for individuals who are looking to do the work, and even if they want a vanilla box, or for those of you who need more clarity on that, vanilla box means you literally do a renovation in that storefront and get it ready for a tenant, and that tenant comes in and builds out the rest in terms of getting it ready for their particular business. Next slide. How we're going to be selecting projects has not changed the way we select projects for the other programs. We're still looking for catalytic projects with strong local impact like jobs and amenities. We are still going to be paying attention to historically disinvested areas that exist, particularly in the West, South, and West, but we won't be limited to that. And here's a big one. We're looking for projects that demonstrate momentum and are expected to break ground in 2022. So in other words, we're looking for projects that are ready right now. Those projects that just need that last piece, that needs that last push to make it real and to make it one in which shovels are actually going to go in the ground this year. We're going to be paying special attention to that. Site control is preferred, and we really went back and forth on the language of this, and I'm just going to be clear. Yeah, site control strengthens your application, period. Now, we're not suggesting that, if those of you who have projects who, you need to still negotiate with that owner, whether it be for the sales of that particular project or for the lease of that particular project, we're still going to consider that. But those projects that are buttoned up with that site control, just as buttoned up, are some that we want to take advantage of. And I say that because those projects are ready to go now. We are still going to be looking at projects that don't necessarily have that level of completeness, but we want to make sure that we are queuing those projects up for subsequent rounds on this particular grant program. Next slide. So what is the process? We think we've made it one which is going to be easy to connect to this resource. Next slide, Ernest. So two things that I think are important to note. One, there are two tracks for this particular grant program. And the track is not how much your project costs as a whole, is how much you're going to be requesting from the city that determines which track you're going to be in. If you're going to be requesting under $250,000, there's going to be an application portal for those small grant requests. For those who are going to be requesting over $250,000, there's going to be a separate portal for those type of requests. So that's one. The second one is we're going to have deadlines set throughout the year for when we will be vetting applications, and I say that intentionally. The application process is going to be ongoing throughout 2022. In other words, we call it a rolling application. What's going to happen on the 31st and on March 10th, and subsequently a date that we're going to set for late this summer, is that on the 31st of January, we're actually going to take the applications received to date and start reviewing those applications. Applications that come in on February 1st are going to go into that next batch that we will start vetting after March 10th. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but I want to make sure it's clear that we are just going to be taking that batch up to those dates and actually start taking them through our review process. So, and we actually anticipate providing the date later this quarter in terms of when that date will be in the summer. Next slide. So the small grant program, the most important thing to note here is that website, chicago.gov/Shy Recovery Grant. And if you want to just remember one thing, remember Shy Recovery Grant. That will take you to this portal. And once you get there, we think it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of how you assess it. One of the things that you will find when you get there, when you're ready to apply for this particular resource, is that we have a project assessment. It's no different than what we use for our Neighborhood Opportunity Fund small grant program, where you're going to be able to go through an assessment that's going to ask you some basic questions for two reasons. One, it's going to help you determine how close you are to having a project that is going to be strong enough to be submitted. And two, it's going to help save some time if you're not ready. It's going to signal the things that we're going to be looking for as we start reviewing these grants. And what we want to do is to make sure that if there's challenges in terms of answering some of those questions, it's really signaling to that applicant that there's still more work to be done. Next slide. The same with the large grant program. You still can go to the same website, but there's going to be a separate portal for you to go ahead and submit your application there. And we are going to be making sure that if there is an opportunity for you guys to go through that particular portal with questions, that there's going to be an email in which you can submit your questions to. And I say that because when we did the webinar, we actually took many questions that day. And on this website, we have a list of those frequently asked questions with answers that you guys can go through and sift through before embarking on your application. Next slide. So just a few tips about readiness. Site control is significantly important. Being able to articulate either that you have site control or that you have a clear path to site control is going to be important. Your plan for construction, in other words, we want to see the signal in terms of how soon you would be ready to break ground and to get your project started. And if there's some significant way that you can demonstrate the length of your project, it's certainly going to help strengthen your request. Having a clear budget, having a budget that demonstrates that you've had multiple contractors look at your project strengthens your application. What we're looking for here is how close are you to looking at a real budget as you make your submission. And then applicant equity, demonstrating that you are going to be using local hires, that you're going to be using diverse contractors also strengthens your application. Next slide. Community engagement, as you know, has been the foundation in terms of us doing all of our work here at Planning. One of the things that we are encouraging is that applicants socialize their programming, their project with the community, with the local community-based organizations, and with the local elected officials. That plan being vetted through the community could be educational for each applicant in terms of how that connectivity with the community is going to enhance that particular community, that community engagement. We do want the applicant to demonstrate engagement with the community through business or personal experience. Is that proposed project supported by local residents and community organizations? And then corridor conditions. Does the applicant show an awareness of the existing services and amenities in the area? And, I tell the story all the time of one applicant who shared with Sophia and I that they were going to be the only sandwich shop in the area. And we did a simple Google search during our review and found that that was not necessarily the case. So know your corridors, know your community, and subsequently make sure they know you and know who you are and what you're bringing to the community. Next slide. And then the last tip, and this one is one that I am learning to appreciate more by working in this department. Our commissioner is, he has done a tremendous job in terms of helping us understand, or at least, and I shouldn't say that. I'm going to say and speak only for myself, helping me better understand how important design is in our communities. Design matters, in terms of not only who's doing the design, but how is that design impacting our communities? So looking at, architects and designers for your projects and having equity and inclusion in terms of who those contractors are is something that we're going to be looking at. The innovation in terms of creative approaches to design, something that looks good, is something that matters. And if you can demonstrate that you have thought your project through, where you can demonstrate that design, we will be looking at that. Celebrating the community. One of the things that Malcolm Crawford talks about ad nauseum is that the sense of place for Austin and Soul City should be one that people recognize around the world. And to understand what that means and to have a project that is going to be located on that corridor would mean having that conversation so you can help complement the fabric of that corridor. Sustainability, we're certainly going to be paying attention to projects that entail things like solar paneling, things like geothermal, whatever you are bringing to the table in terms of demonstrating that environmental awareness, we certainly want to be adding points to your application for doing so. And then communication. What is your project saying when you get it done? Is it complimenting the community? Is it inviting the community? We want you to think through that and to articulate that with your application. Next slide. So there are a tremendous amount of resources to assist applicants as they go through this process. We encourage you to go to the Community Development Grant Resource page on our city website. It's got linked to city resources, materials to assist with your readiness, your financial feasibility, construction planning, showing your impact, and even business planning. And you guys are really blessed with two great organizations that have been very consistent on this call. Actually, now the more I think about it, it's even more than that in terms of assisting with your application. And we're happy to make sure that that connectivity can happen if you are challenged with making those type of connections. The point being, there are resources to assist. No one has to go through this application process alone. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to pause real quick. I can take some questions. If they're easy questions, I'm going to answer them right away. If there's questions that need a deeper dive, I'm going to leave my contact information in the chat so you guys can reach back offline and we can go ahead and make sure you get the answers that you need. So with that, do you guys have any questions?
I have a question, Jim. I was on a Zoom meeting with the Department of Housing. And I'm sure, as you know, as housing is under planning, that they're getting ready to introduce an ordinance this upcoming city council to be able to now waive fees for housing Whether it be gas bill, water, bill, all these excessive fees that allow property to be within our corridors or in our communities that's vacant, is that tied in a way to this grant? Whereas they're gonna be able to waive fees and then you can build houses, and then local residents, local contractors will be able to work on it. How do housing play into this particular recovery plan?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Alderman. To take a deeper dive on that, you and I both know Will Edwards, who's on point on this thing, and it just got introduced to City Council, so the timing on that may not impact what we're doing here with this grant program. We hope that eventually it will, because we think that would be a game changer. And what the Alderman is alluding to is there is an ordinance out there being introduced that will help with some of the property challenges that we've encountered, that when an investor or an owner is looking to literally do the right thing and bring that property back online, the impediments of water bills and other liens on the property have sometimes, in many cases, stalled that effort to renovate those particular projects. And so we're trying to be proactive in terms of figuring out a remedy for that. I don't have all the details for it, Alderman. That's not something that I've been running point on. But again, Will Edwards, and I can have him circle back with you.
Yeah, I think that it's an opportunity to tie in all of this to make a great development and revitalize these communities, even with people who have passed away and that property is just sitting there. And if we're going to use funds to build up, then certainly it would give a person a better start. If those fees were wiped away, then they could see clear and be able to come up with a plan, as well as being able to hire contractors locally to be able to develop this project. And it's sort of what you're saying, but I'm just not sure if you connected those dots yet. That's what I was looking.
Yeah, no, and you're right. I think it's a little early for us to have connected those dots in a way that you suggest. We are hopeful that you and your colleagues see the value of what you just said and get it to actually become law. But we are not there yet, as you know. And so that timing may not coincide with what we're doing here today.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Were there any other questions? I know I have Lydia Ross who has to jump off, and I want to make sure you guys get an update from her. But are there any other questions out there? And you guys, most of you guys can reach me. I'm going to leave my contact information in the chat. I'm not sure if we're still, DCase is up front. So listen, thank you guys so much. Can you go to the next slide real quick, Ernest? We'll put this slide up later, but it's that Child Recovery Grant. That's all you need to remember. The email for questions, dpd@cityofchicago.org, and you guys will be good to go. All right, with that, Lydia, please forgive me. I know we got a late start. Please, guys, welcome Lydia Ross from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, who's going to give us an update on public art. Thank you so much, Lydia.
Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Alderman. Hi, everybody. It's always a pleasure to see so many familiar faces and friends. I'm going to go quickly before the next internet meeting takes over. I am here to talk about two exciting public art projects in the works. Just last night, these are outdated slides, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it. Just last night, with special thanks to Alderman Mitz, we hosted a really wonderful community forum with our artist finalists for the forthcoming Joint Public Safety Training Campus over at Chicago Avenue 443. This project, we can leave it there for just a second. So last night we had a forum where our 5 artist teams, 3 of whom are from Chicago, 2 groups are from Los Angeles, presented about their work. And then we spent about an hour having a really wonderful conversation, perhaps with some of you and other community members, that was really kind of time for exchange and inspiration. So asking questions like, what do folks want to see activate the plaza and the opportunities for artwork. Ernest, if you can go back to the previous slide. Just really quickly, on the right, the two images you're seeing here are two renderings of the larger campus. The main opportunities for artwork are going to be in the public plaza that serves as the public entrance to the JPSTC administrative building, and the forthcoming Boys and Girls Club, which, as I've come to learn, is the first Boys and Girls Club that's being built in a generation. So this space is really meant for the thousands of young folks and employees who are using this space, and all of you. It's in your neighborhood. This space also speaks to another site down at the west end of the facility. There's a large wall and a kind of plaza area, and the two sites hopefully will speak to each other. So we've recorded the event. I'm going to post the link in the chat. I really invite you, even if you have 20 minutes of time, to just cruise through the artists' presentations. It's an incredible group of professionals that was selected by our wonderful project advisory panel, several community representatives appointed by the aldermen, stakeholders from fire, police, Boys and Girls Club, and artists from Austin and across the city. So I just really wanted to quickly go through the 5 finalists, just so you are aware. So next slide. We have 3 teams from Chicago: Adra Soto and Dan Sullivan, Bernard Williams, and Bob Faust, who often collaborates with his partner, the artist Nick Cave. Next slide. We also selected 2 incredible teams from Los Angeles. So if you have time to watch the panel, each artist had 4 minutes to showcase their work. And then, we asked several questions about what community members want to see from the space, and really sent the artists off with inspiration. And I know this meeting is coming a day after, but our doors are open. I'll leave my personal contact information and the Public Art General email. Any thoughts you have, if you just want to send thoughts via email, great. If you want to get on the phone and talk about the opportunity, I'm here, we're here. Any questions or suggestions that come into us then get funneled out to all of the artist teams. They will be developing their designs over the next month and a half, and we will hope to announce a winner on late February. If you can go to the next slide, I also wanted to share, in partnership with Alderman Emma Mitz, as well as Alderman Taliaferro, we are working on a new public art project with artist Rahman Statique Barnes at the Central Green Line station. He's going to be transforming both sides of this viaduct into new works of art. We're hosting a community forum to introduce you to Rahman, and similar to what we did last night, just really have an open platform where you can give him ideas, suggestions, get to know him a little bit, and really send him off with some inspiration for his project before he comes back and has more opportunities to review his designs with members of the community. So I know I just shared a lot really fast. Thank you always for inviting me to join and give you some art updates. I do have to leave, but like I said, my email and phone proverbial door is always open. And I really hope to hear from some of you with questions, suggestions, thoughts about either of these projects, and hope to see some of you next week with Rahman at our next community forum. So with that, I have to scoot, but I wish you all a safe and happy weekend. And thanks again for some time.
Lydia, before you leave, I just wanted to clarify that the artwork that we're doing for the Joint Public Safety Training Academy is on the east and west wall.
Correct.
East and west wall of the facility.
West wall and East Plaza.
Yes, yes. So as you're looking at the video, you can see where they're speaking regarding to the artwork. And also, I just wanted to share that I did request the artists to reach out to me so that they can be put in contact with any organizations who may want to dive in with them regarding their artwork and get more information if they want to learn. Before the finalist is selected, they need to have some knowledge of the community, what engagement with the public as to what the public have requested for. So hopefully if you all are interested, we can have them to come out and you can be able to take a deeper dive at the work.
Absolutely. Yeah, Alderman, thank you so much for your partnership on the project.
Thank
We're
you.
really excited.
Thank you.
And Lilia, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Okay. I see
Thank you.
where Lydia's put her contact information in the chat. So if anybody wants to reach out, she will certainly be responsive to that.
Thanks
with that,
so
we're
much,
gonna move
everyone.
on. Our next presenter is going to be Gabriella Jurasic, who's going to walk us through the We Will Chicago initiative. Gabriella?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me present at the roundtable today. Can you all hear me? I know I'm in an open office space, so masking up today. I'm here to just kind of give an update on where we are with We Will Chicago. Some of you may already be familiar with We Will Chicago. I know Vanessa Stokes was one of our artist organizers who did a lot of really great work over the summer and early fall on We Will Chicago. So we just wanted to present kind of an update of where we are right now in the process and provide a little overview. What is We Will Chicago? We Will Chicago is an ambitious 3-year process to create a citywide plan for the future of Chicago. So a citywide plan allows us to kind of put together some metrics and kind of formalize some concepts so that they're going to be consistent across the city. So I know a lot of you have probably been involved in quality of life plans or other types of plans within the Austin community previously. So just one second, I'm just gonna. Apologies, thank you. One of the things that we're looking to do is kind of centralize and standardize metrics for public policy, formalize standards for what we were doing with other quality of life plans or neighborhood plans, align budgets and capital projects in policy priorities, innovate public financing tools. So that means programs like the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or the Small Business Improvement Fund, and then standardized civic and community engagement in public decision-making. So a lot of what you all are doing right here, we want to find ways to kind of replicate that across the entire city. Next slide, please. So just as kind of a broad overview of how this is structured. So there are 2 principles to We Will Chicago, and these were kind of all put together in 2020 through the work of some focus groups. So our 2 principles are equity and resiliency, and I'll get into the definition of that a little bit more. We have 5 themes, which are historical reckoning and trust building, the evaluation of equity impacts, community engagement, accountability, and then interagency and cross collaboration. Those are all pretty packed terms, so I can come back to talk about those another time, but we're just going to kind of do a broader overview today. And then the pillars, which are our key quality of life drivers that we're going to be addressing. Next slide. So how are we defining equity? Equity is both an outcome and a process. This results in fair and just access to opportunity and resources that provide everyone the ability to thrive. Next slide. And what is resiliency? So resiliency is the ability of individuals, institutions, businesses, and systems within a community to survive, adapt, and grow despite the chronic stresses or shocks it experiences. A truly resilient city is not only expected to perform well in good times, but also recover quickly after challenges. So those types of challenges could be things like the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, all types of different challenges. Next slide. So here are what have been defined as the 7 pillars of We Will Chicago. You know, some of these are a little bit more self-explanatory. So there's arts and culture, which is about how do we create artwork in the city? How are artists involved in the work? How are they trained to do work? And how do we enjoy it? You know, in all neighborhoods. Economic development, which I believe was Vanessa's pillar that she worked on. So economic development is talking about how do we grow community wealth? How do we increase prosperity across the entire city in ways that are equitable as well. Environment, climate, and energy. It's a little bit more self-explanatory. So we're talking about you know, climate change. We're talking about how do we protect and preserve our natural resources and environment. Housing in neighborhoods is about, you know, housing and amenities, as well as how do we make those affordable to all and accessible. Lifelong learning is about education, but not just formal education in school settings. Also, how do we share experiences kind of across generations? How do we learn from our elders? How do we learn from each other? Public health and safety. Public health and safety is both actual wellness and well-being, mental health, as well as safety within communities, you know, like reducing violence and, you know, how do people feel safe walking around their neighborhoods. And then transportation and infrastructure is the last one, which is about how do we get around, and also infrastructure, things like broadband internet and buildings, you know, bridges, parks, that kinds of stuff. Next. So this is kind of our broad structure of what we've been doing. We've had, you know, kind of eventually this plan will be going to city council. So it will be reviewed by the mayor, all of the aldermen, as well as the commissions that are just like the plan commission. Under that, we have an advisory committee, and then we have a city interagency committee. So that includes the CHA, the CTA, all the city departments, you know, and representatives from services as well, like the police department, fire department, that type of thing. So far for the past year, pretty much since summer of last year, we've had research teams, which have also included the artists who have been involved in this process, who have been kind of compiling what we're calling guiding questions. And right now they're in the process of writing actual objectives for the plan. Part of those research teams are also community partners. You know, I can share a list of those people, but they were kind of recruited through an open application process that we had back in May of last year. We will hopefully be launching a street ambassador program coming up this summer, because this is going to be the year of engagement. And so we want to be in the community. We want to be getting feedback from the public, you know, wherever they are. And then you can also learn a lot more and share feedback at wewillchicago.com. Next slide. So again, just to reiterate, this is where we are right now. 2022 is going to be the year of public engagement. We will have a draft of the entire plan available by June, and that's where we're going to really be asking for all of your input. We want you to read through this document. You know, if there's a specific pillar you're interested in, we want you to be providing all of your comments, and we're going to be doing lots and lots of surveys this year to kind of, you know, get broad. You know, we want the criticism, we also want the support, we want everyone to really participate in this process. So that pretty much June through October, we're going to be doing a lot of in-person and virtual experiences for people. Then we're going to go back, refine everything based out of all the commentary that we've received. And then sometime in 2023, probably early 2023, we'll be having a final plan that will then be presented to elected officials, commissioners, and the public for review and implementation. Next slide. So how can you get involved? So we're going to be putting together a survey in February where all of the plan objectives are going to be introduced to the public. And we're going to want people to vote yes or no on these, so that we get a good feedback if we're heading in the right direction before we really dive down and start writing actual policy. And then we're going to be in neighborhoods. As I said, we're going to be having a street team this summer. We also have materials so that if you want to do a smaller group discussion with some of your neighbors, or if you're at a school and want to do something or businesses where you can kind of run your own meeting. And I'm actually hoping to come back to talk to you guys. We had a poll set up, but I think due to some of our tech issues, we really didn't have a chance to get the poll activated for this session. But if you want to put in the chat, if there was one of those pillars that you're most interested in learning about, then we can come back and do a whole kind of in-depth kind of meeting about those or the pillar that you want, or one or two of them. So if you just want to drop in there, and then we can count it up and see what is kind of a theme that people are really interested in. We would love to come back and do kind of a more in-depth conversation. So yeah, if you have any questions, please email wewill@cityofchicago.org. Thank you.
Well, let me.
Thank you, Lynn. Sorry. Thank you, Gabby. And hello, everyone. Jim had to kind of run to another meeting. This is Ernest Bellamy, DPD West Region Planner, taking over for the back half of the Austin Roundtable. As Gabby has mentioned, any of those 7 pillars that you'd like to get more info on, interested in learning about, feel free to drop that into the chat. So without further ado, our last item for today is the corridor manager update. So I will be passing it off to Malcolm Crawford. Malcolm, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. New year, new you, Mary. So, a couple of things. We heard a lot from last year, and so we talked about what were the 3 things that we heard the most of last year that we should be putting our energies toward. And so from those conversations, it was parking and the need for off-street parking, and as well as access the parking from the alley parking, as well as parking lots and possibly public parking areas. And so what we're going to be doing is working with DPD as well as CDOT and others to try to look at parking on Chicago Avenue and what that looks like and how parking needs to change. And so that was one of the things that came out of a lot of last year's conversation, is the need for parking on Chicago Avenue. Study parking on Chicago Avenue and come up with solutions. So as we move forward and more businesses are coming in, that people are able to park. And Alderman Talaferro always says that he's not going to stop at a business if it's not close enough where he can go in and out. If he has to walk a block or down the street, he's more than likely not going to go. And so that's the one thing that we're going to be talking about. And then the next thing that we're going to be addressing is design guidelines. And so as we're building Soul City and we're building how this looks and people are coming in, a lot of times people don't necessarily know what they want. They know they want the building and the facade to be different, but they don't actually know what they want. And so we're bringing in some architects, and we also are working with Urban Main Street, the property owners, Department of Planning, and DKs to kind of talk about those design guidelines, because you have one person who wants black brick, and then you have another person who wants windows to start from the top and go halfway down. And so you have a lot of different elements that people are talking about. But we believe we had some design guidelines, but now enhancing that and talking with property owners and people who have businesses up and down Chicago Avenue, we can kind of look at design guidelines. And one of the things that Commissioner Cox always says is, and I say it, that anywhere in the world, you should be able to see a picture of a building and people know that that's in Soul City. And so we're looking at those guidelines that will be consistent along Chicago Avenue that we can use to try to, just draw people by the presence of how those buildings look. And lastly, one of the biggest things that we heard last year was public safety. And what does public safety look like on Chicago Avenue? Do we want everybody to have rolling shutters and the lights out at night? Do we want, a particular type of glass? There is a new glass that just came out, as a matter of fact, that is because of the riots, where you could see in and out, but a bullet can't come through. And so that's U.S. architectural glass. And so that's an opportunity, because what I'm being told as we continue to learn more is that the storefront is the window to the community. And so if it looks uninviting, then people don't feel comfortable going in and out of the business. And then we also heard that something can be going on inside your business and nobody knows. You could be under attack, but because we don't have our windows exposed and you can't see in and nobody can see out, it doesn't look inviting as you're traveling down Chicago Avenue and trying to look at what does the business look like that I might be interested in going in. And so that all ties in: public safety, design guidelines, and parking. And so those are the three things that we took away that we've been talking about in our meetings, and that we want to bring everybody in on and start working on those three elements of the corridor development that we can play a part in as property owners in the corridor, is again, parking, design guidelines, and public safety. And thank you.
All right, thank you, Malcolm, for that update. And lastly, if there's any questions, Q&As for anything seen here today, or Malcolm in his update, I'll take a brief pause to see if there's any questions from the roundtable attendees. Okay, well, hearing none, really appreciate everyone coming out today.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
No problem. Go ahead, Dr. Lockhart.
I'm sorry. I came in late. I was confused by the Zoom link. So I missed quite a bit, but my question is in reference to the work on Chicago Avenue in the 4800 block on West Chicago Avenue, 4800 block. And just want to know, have we started in that direction yet?
I apologize, Dr. Lockhart. Can you be a bit more specific?
Yeah, well, yeah. So, I had made a couple of inquiries in reference to the yard where the streets and sanitation used to occupy, and trying to make sure that we are moving in the right direction with that parcel. So do you have any updates for me on that?
There's no updates with regards to that for this roundtable.
Will we have some soon?
Well, I definitely do owe you an email update, Dr. Lockhart. I did receive that email from you right before the holiday break.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you'll be getting the email in short order with regards to that.
Okay. Well, that sounds awesome. Is there that's my only question for right now. Thank you so much for letting me come in late and then share that.
Okay. And I also see down in the chat from Emily with regards to timeline regarding upcoming projects, upcoming or developing projects.
Yes. Can I speak a little bit to that?
Of course. Go ahead, Malcolm.
So a couple of things. Can you mute over there, young man? I'm sorry. So you have TNC Fitness, which is in the 5900 block of Chicago Avenue, who's looking at a opening date of late 2020. You have Brown Soul Food, who's looking at an opening date of mid-April. You have as well Soul City Plaza homes. They're looking to start breaking ground in like May of this year that I know of. So those are three that I know of that is in Soul City West that have opening dates of 2020. And Liz, I don't know if are you still out in 23 as far as opening date?
Who knows?
Possibly.
There's still, yeah. I mean, the project is moving along. It's all that is great. I've just realized that development is far more complex and it's not as linear as I initially thought it would be, but we have had some major progress. We're in design development. We hope to be out the permit by late April, by the mid to late April. So yeah, and then we have to figure out opening date just based on what's best in terms of seasonality, because there's certain times of year you don't want to open a grocery store, like the dead of winter, because it's so nice out right now. So we are progressing. The whole 5713 West Chicago Avenue is development is progressing. We are in talks with a potential second tenant in that building. So it's promising and it is progressing. I'm tired of putting a date on anything, because every single time I say this is going to happen by then, I just sound stupid. So I've just learned to stop saying anything, because Lord knows, like literally, he's the only person that knows.
Understood. As well as I forgot, Letitia May has some new construction that she's looking at on Chicago Avenue. Should be early 2020. Mixed use development, commercial on the bottom and residential on the top. That's coming. So those are a few projects, Emily, that I know that are teed up and ready to go. But I'll say teed up. Liz, I'm taking a page out of your book. They're teed up and they're ready to go soon.
I think all of it. I mean, I know what we're doing. We'll break ground this year. I think we're on track for groundbreaking by summer. But once again, groundbreaking is a big milestone, but it's still not the same as opening day. Mm-hmm. So I think we should take it milestone by milestone.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Brother Malcolm.
Yes.
I'll reiterate this question again. Is there anything in the works coming down this way? Chicago Avenue, I'm talking about 5,000, 4,900, 4,800. Are we getting left out over here?
I would hope not, and I would have to defer to Ernest on that.
All right. Well, Definitely, I will say in future roundtables, you know, any updates on developments happening can happen at those future roundtables. Nothing to speak of as of today's meeting, but there are definitely things in the works. Being respectful of the time that we're roughly at on my end, hour 15 for this meeting. I wanted to get in one last question. I see Vanessa Stokes has her hand raised. Vanessa, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to share, thank you, Dr. Lockhart, for inquiring about the east end of the Seoul City corridor. I think that, you know, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. But yes, so I do know of, there is a cafe opening. Oh, there's two. One on the corner of Cicero and Chicago Avenue in the building where the liquor store used to be. There is a cafe coming there. And then there is another cafe coming right next door to Pop Courts. And that's on the 5200 block. So it's on the west side of Laramie. So those are two things that I know about. But we've been getting a lot of inquiries at the SSA about properties that are available, inquiring about those things, you know, on Chicago Avenue. And I'm sharing with people more so the east end of the corridor, just to help to promote that area. But I would love to talk more with you, Dr. Lockhart, just to continue to see what is possible on that end, because I think that, yeah, I think that we definitely need to look at what we can create on that 48, 4900 block, or 5000 block too, all those blocks,
Right.
between Lamont all the way to LeClaire. I think, you know, especially with that big vacant lot between Lawler and LeClaire, there's that huge lot that's sitting there. I think that, you know, let's see what we can help to, you know, create on that end of the corridor.
And then lastly, there's one last hand. Liz, feel free.
Yeah, speaking of the east end of the corridor, I didn't know if there was any updates on, I think Dr. Lockhart brought up the Streets and Sands building. Is there any update on like what's happening there, if anything? And then also the large lot, I believe, on the 5000 block of Chicago Avenue. Is there any movement with that? Any development happening with those? And then my second question, I'm sorry, this is a two-parter, is in terms of the Chicago Recovery Grant, I know that there were a lot of projects that were awarded money in earlier rounds of NOF that weren't really shovel ready. Is there anything that AAA-BNA or the corridor business manager is doing to reach out to those projects, now that there's more funding available, to get them over the line? Because it seems like there were a lot of projects in the pipeline that kind of stalled due to funding. And now that there's this big pot of money, I think it's low-hanging fruit to get those back going if the business owner is still amenable. And do we have a list of those that we can kind of reach out for? And is there a place for technical assistance for those projects to get them to potentially be shovel ready in 2022?
And to that, yes, we have been talking to a couple, at least two of those businesses that were good businesses that we wanted on Chicago Avenue, but was not able to get through that original process. And yes, we've been talking to them and hoping to get them now back engaged and get them back on Chicago Avenue, a group of attorneys. So as far as that list that we have of particular businesses that we needed on Chicago Avenue, one was that service business, which is an attorney's office. And so So that's back online, hopefully. And then another larger, I'll just say another larger business that was looking for Chicago Avenue. There's a possibility. So to your question, yes, we are continuing to reach out to those businesses we believe would be a good fit on Chicago Avenue and let them know about this part. If you don't get our newsletter, it's like 400 people that gets that, and we get a lot of response from that newsletter from people wanting to be on Chicago Avenue. And if you run into anybody, Liz, who's interested, please send them our way.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd be more than happy to work with them on looking at inventory and in the corridor and what we can do where.
Yeah. What about like prior NOF winners? I just remember there was prior Thrive and NOF winners who just never.
No, so to that part, the 7 Thrive all are up and running. Everybody that we had for Thrive actually did go through. It was 7, and all 7 were opened. We only have 1 out of the 7 who's still in the running, as a matter of fact, which was Frank Lewis, who's electric, but he's doing the dirt shop. But
Yeah.
other than of those 7, all 7 were up and running. So that now of NOF, those were the ones that I'm talking about. We have 2 that was slated that are still, that we reached back out to, see if they would be interested in coming back now that there's this other pot. And like I say, if there's anybody else that that we know of, please just have them call us and we'll jump right on it and see what we could do to get them up in, in the corridor. And then with this new development as well that's coming, there'll be another 10 storefronts that'll be coming online on Chicago Avenue that we can look at putting businesses in.
Yeah, awesome sauce.
Well, I just wanted to say we're at 1:32. We're a bit over for this meeting, even with our late start. I did want to lightly mention, I dumped in the chat that scavenger sales, the list of scavenger sales should be coming out towards the end of this month. So we have about a full week and about a day as far as working week goes to that. So be on the lookout to that. Feel free to reach out to me or Jim in the interim between now and the next roundtable with regards to any DPD specific updates. Our next roundtable is February 18th. We'll see you then. And in the interim, we'll be reaching out to a few folks via email, and we'll be connecting with Malcolm and the alderman. So there's feel free to reach out to us through all those multiple means. Right. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Stay safe as COVID is still out there. COVID is still a thing. Stay safe and take your necessary precautions. And Happy New Year.
Same to you guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Everyone.
Everyone be safe.